So Trump is trying to defund PBS and the NPR, and the only people who are going to be angry about this are clearly the liberals because this is something that they've been using for years to mold the minds of the youth and the kids, and also to push the government propaganda. Like this is what state-run media is for. Everybody's getting mad. It's like, oh, Fox is Trump's state-run media. It's like, no, NPR and PBS are state-run media, and if they need government support to exist, then they probably should not exist because on the market we have many different options, especially today. Back in the day, PBS and NPR, there weren't many things. There wasn't that much competition. But now that there's things like YouTube and all this shit, all these media companies are failing even harder. And they need all this government support to actually compete with, you know, YouTubers who can film something in the matter of like 10 minutes, or somebody who can make their own thing with their kid that millions of people will watch, as opposed to government propaganda pushing oftentimes socialism and left-wing ideology on your kids. So this is a good thing. uh, Wasting money supporting businesses that can't sustain themselves doesn't make any sense. And this is the problem with the government most of the time, is whenever you have a government institution, you have something like this started, it just continues to thrive and suck resources, even though it's not providing any type of benefit. Usually they'll get a budget. They'll be like, oh, we get $1 million this year. So let's just say they come under budget, like 500,000. What are they going to do with that other 500,000? They're going to waste it on non-essentials and things that you do not need in order to get the same budget next year. Whereas on the free market, you don't have this problem, right? You aren't connected to an infinite source of money like the government, because the government can just keep printing money, throwing money at the issue for forever and ever until your dollar is completely worthless because your government has printed so much fucking money. So getting rid of these things is good, right? Most things that the government does is insufficient. I mean, is just not workable, feasible. It's not sustainable, and also it's just getting rid of a lot of left-wing propaganda, because the same thing that's happening in America happens in Canada, but to a way larger extent. You guys only support PBS and NPR by the terms of, like, I don't know, 15, 20 million a year. Whereas in Canada, we are much smaller than you, but we spend way more money on our media. We throw so much money, and it's typically the liberals, hundreds of millions of dollars every year to the CBC and this shit. And this ensures that these companies never say anything bad about the government. If you want government corruption not to be exposed, then have a state-run media, because that is what you are doing by funding this. So people on the left or the right should be against it, right? Because if one day the conservatives just decide to start funding them more, then you're going to see them have a slant more towards that party, right? So the least government intervention in things is always better, and will always, like, let the free market deal with entertainment. We don't need a government subsidizing our entertainment. It's just as bad in Canada. They're like, oh, you need this show needs to have this many Canadian shows and this much, and you have to watch this because it's Canadian broadcasting. It's like, man, if nobody wants to watch our shit, then let's just let other things take over. We don't need to keep subsidizing shitty performers, right? And the government should not be funding arts to any degree, because that is also a tool of propaganda they will use to manipulate people, and it's always being used in the favor of leftists and socialists, because they are the ones who are always willing to fund these useless things that are not providing oftentimes any value to anybody. PBS, NPR is not providing value. Okay, NPR is so fucking boring. if you can get through like a whole episode, then congrats to you. You know, I applaud you. You're an amazing human being. But most people don't give a shit about NPR, and we can all tell it's slant. It's liberal slant. And if the government is funding something, there should not be a bias to it. I think we should all be able to agree with that at the very least. So the best thing to do is just take away its funding. So I'm curious to see what they're going to say about Trump with his new proposals to remove PBS or remove the funding. And I want to see, if it does get removed, how long they're going to last, how long they're going to be around. Probably be a year after they lose their funding. These companies will shut down. So that's good, you know. That's something we want. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right. You should want the government to stay out of the media, because eventually it will be used against you. Even though it's pushing your narrative, your ideals right now, it doesn't mean it's always going to be the case. So, you know, good on Trump for doing this. But this is all I pretty much had to say. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya.